YouTube? Awesome Rider here. Welcome to my review for Kikai Sentai Zenkaiger episode 16. So I thought this was a pretty solid and entertaining episode. So first of all, our monster of the week is a magnetic monster that was put out into practice by Not Navi, the evil version, who's been kind of in charge the last couple weeks. And that was sort of a side plot, was about this guy being in charge of the plans and how the boss isn't as tough on him, probably because it's his cute pet. That's the way he sees it, I guess, and that's why he's not as hard on him. And then at the end of the episode, how even though they failed again, how there were still some positive outcomes, and how the bird now knows that Stacy helped them out. So that was kind of a side plot going on throughout the episode. But they put into practice a magnet monster, and that's sort of like, I guess the B plot, I would say, the A plot's maybe Stacy, and the B plot was like the magnet monster and the magnet monster's antics, because this is hardly a new thing. I think I've seen this concept done at least once or twice in Sentai, maybe in Rider, but like a monster that makes the characters a magnet or something along those lines, and basically the magnetic objects are attracted to them. And it affects all the Rangers, but it affects the Kikinoids worse, I guess, because they're robots. So that's like a plot throughout the episode, is that the Kikinoids are basically trying to outrun this stuff, and they keep getting stuff latched onto them like a Katamari ball, like including Tukayo's mech, which is following them, and it goes all throughout the episode until they like bring it into the final battle of the episode. And that was honestly pretty amusing, because you'd be having some scenes with Stacy and Stacesar, and then all of a sudden you would just cut to them being like running, and their dynamic in general will often remind me of the Imagines, and this episode in particular reminded me of that. So that was going on, and I found that to be pretty amusing. And then in the final battle too, there was some fun stuff with that, like how yellow and yellow and red couldn't combine because they were being opposized. That's a word. And so they all fought in their robo forms, which is actually kind of cool, because I kind of forget that since we see their morphed forms all the time in normal scale, that they're sort of kind of like the Shogun Zords and the Super Zeo Zords in terms of how they work. And so it was kind of nice to actually see them in their big grown-up mode. That sounds funny, like, they're a big boy now. That was weird. That was the Magnet Monster stuff. But the sort of main stuff happening involved Stacy, and I guess potentially setting up for a redemption arc, which I have some very mixed thoughts on. So if you don't remember last week, Stacy had passed by Zenkaiser's grandmother, and she reminded him of his mom, and he's thinking about that at the beginning of the episode. When the Rangers get back from their first fight with the magnet monster, they run into him eating ice cream at the shop, and they're all surprised, and they kind of pretend that they're not enemies. And then Zenkaiser's forced to ask him for help in trying to figure out this magnet problem. And Stacesar kind of helps convince him, because he says, well, you know, that's the old lady's grandson, you don't want to upset her. And he ultimately does help them by basically luring the monster to a location and setting him up and all that stuff. And I thought it was going to be one of those double crosses, where like it seemed like he was helping, but he was actually in on with the villains. But there was sort of a thread dangling at the end that made you think that he might actually be on the Rangers' side, or that he might be thinking about it. But it seemed like it was fairly straightforward, as he actually kind of helped them out in this situation, and it doesn't help with his confusion going on with the villains and what's going on with the grandmother and stuff. And to be honest, the whole story sounds very similar. Like, he's bonding with an old lady over food, and he has a complicated relationship with the main character. That sounds like somebody else I know. I feel like he even has a sort of similar hairstyle. But I have just mixed thoughts on it. I mean, first of all, like I said last week, I'm not sure whether his relationship with the grandmother and her reminding him of his mom is supposed to mean that him and Zenkaiser are somehow actually more closely related, or whether she's just literally reminding him of her. And it's completely unrelated, and it's just like, you know, a reminding factor. So I'm not sure. And this is definitely giving us some interesting stuff to play off of. Like, it made this episode pretty solid, because there was interesting stuff going on with Stacy, and then the magnet stuff was funny. But I just have mixed feelings on a Stacy redemption now, like, overall. I mean, when he first appeared, you guys probably remember me saying, I don't want to see a redemption arc. I'd like to see an actual, real evil Ranger that stays evil the whole time. Personally, if I was doing the show, I would just keep him evil the whole time. But setting that aside, I'm a sucker for a good redemption arc too for characters like this, and I'm not going to entirely like lose my chiz over this redemption arc, but I feel like it's just too soon. It's not necessarily too soon to set seeds up, or to set up, you know, a more complex character than just, brah, I'm evil. But Stacy's whole story just feels so weird and jumbled up with two Kaisers at the same time, because his introduction kind of got shuffled aside by Stacesar, and we focused a lot on him, and he's kind of been in the background. And then now we're setting up a redemption arc already, and then you have the fact that Stacesar also, he's not a bad guy, but he's kind of got that roguish character that's going to eventually come around and be good, but probably always be a little bit roguish. But you know what I mean, it's just so jumbled up in it. I think it's a combination of it seeming a little bit too soon for this, with also the fact that it's all smushed together with two Kaisers, and I just wish it had a little bit more time to breathe. I think it'll be kind of interesting. It will be interesting to look back at this once we have the whole series, and if they introduce any other Rangers or what other plots they do, just to see what the full picture looks like. But right now, I just feel it's a little bit jumbled up and rushed. I'm not necessarily opposed to it, but it just seems a little bit too soon, and I wish Stacy had a little bit time separate from two Kaiser to sort of breathe. But the episode by itself, thoughts on like Redeemed Rangers withstanding, I thought was pretty solid. I would give it a 3 out of 5. Like, it was entertaining and had some interesting stuff. I'll just be kind of interested to see where this goes. And again, I just feel like it's too soon for a redemption arc. I mean, even if this, I guess, could be planting the seeds for it for farther down the road, but it feels like we're just so early in the series. Like, even though I didn't want it and I'm pretty sure they were going to redeem him, I just didn't expect them to start setting it up this soon. But what did you guys think of that? Do you want to see Stacy get a redemption arc, or would you rather see him stay evil? Let me know in the comments. As always, until next time, like, comment, subscribe, and climb the steps and ring that bell so you can hear my videos. Dawson Ryder, signing out.